on point, and we must be centering those in our discussions of this act. For me, it is not acceptable to have, is not a solution that says, oh, we're just not going to investigate the murders of over 200 British service personnel.
But this does, of course. But the problem here is it opens the door to the reinvestigation of those who were involved in SAS operations, those who fought for their country, some of the bravest in this country, being pursued in the courts over things they were asked to do at the time. I mean, should former members of the IRA be allowed to sit on a group that forms part of that commission?
So the commission that you're referring to, the panel, is going to be made up of victims and survivors, and veterans are going to be included on there. It's vitally important that we have the voices of veterans. In order to ensure that we can get accountability for the murders of the personnel that I spoke about, we also are we also recognise that we have to have the right protections in place for veterans. So, for example, the right to ask for anonymity, not having to go to Northern Ireland, how we deal with those veterans. And so I absolutely want to assure you that we are very cognizant of the impact that some of these inquests can have.
I understand that.
But we have to make sure that we have our protections in place in law.
I understand that. And you've mentioned veterans a number of times, but that's not the question I'm asking you. The question I'm asking is, should former members of the IRA be allowed to sit on that group? That is the suggestion, that they will be allowed to sit on that group, and it's caused a huge amount of hurt and concern for the veterans that you're referencing. Do you think it is acceptable for former members of the IRA to be allowed to sit on that group?
So we haven't got the makeup of that panel at all, and it's about victims and it's about survivors. I'm asking you, do you think that former members of the IRA ought to be allowed to sit on that group? I absolutely think it should be for victims and for survivors. And if you are a member of a group, which means that you are not a victim and you are not a survivor, of course I wouldn't want that. But for me, what's super important is that veterans are on that, because of course there is no equivalent between veterans and people who served in the IRA.
But there will be people who will be listening to this who will say, well, some of those people who used to be members of the IRA do think they are victims. They do think that they count under that. That's why I'm asking you that very specific question. Do you think they should be allowed to sit on the group?
We have to, in Northern Ireland, recognise that we have to be moving forward and we have to make progress. And what this is about is bringing communities together and going forward together. Okay. It's about recognising those who have suffered during the Troubles, which, as you know, has had a hugely lasting impact and was hugely painful for many people who went through it. What this is about is making sure that the range of victims, the range of survivors, including veterans, have the opportunity to make their voices heard, to reflect on the impact that it had on them.
I've asked a number of times, we don't have an answer, but Louise Sanders-Jones, we do really appreciate you joining us on the programme this morning. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
That is Louise Sanders-Jones, the Minister for Veterans, and herself a veteran of the war in Afghanistan.
And no one doubts the legitimacy of her position as a veteran and why she wants to be in politics. But the fundamental answer I took from that is she clearly can't guarantee that members of the IRA won't be on that committee.
No, I don't think that,
Because she could have said, we want victims to be represented, but if they serve on the IRA, that they would be discounted, and that's clearly not the policy. The other thing that occurred to me listening to that, Kate, is that we haven't managed to get someone, a serving BBC person. We've got some former BBC